I have been involved in the filmmaking industry for over 25 years. And during that time, I have met a lot of people along the way who eventually quit filmmaking entirely. I remember one time receiving an email from somebody who said, after 10 years in the industry, I'm going to pursue being a mortgage banker. So if you need a mortgage, let me know. And even just today, somebody posted about how they were looking for a job outside of the industry to pay the bills, and they would do film on the side. So they weren't quitting entirely, but they were quitting the full-time pursuit of filmmaking as the pay the bills job. And these are things that are highly personal. There is no linear pathway in this industry. It is full of rejection, and everybody, I think, has a limit of what that is. And I think it's perfectly natural and normal to consider whether this is what you want to pursue full time or not. For me, I have always had some kind of full-time job to pay the bills that, for the most part, for most, especially once I left Los Angeles, was not related to the film industry at all. 10 years I did data analysis for a food consulting company. And for the last 10 years or so, I have been teaching film. So it's related to film, and I get to talk about film and help people make their films and have access myself. And, it's a wonderful thing. I love teaching, but it's teaching. So it's different. But to a certain extent, I also have always hated the notion of, with teachers like those who can't do teach, or people who would say, well, you're not a filmmaker unless you're making your full-time salary based on your film efforts. Because the reality of that is most of the people that I know who make their full-time salary in the film industry do a variety of different projects. They're commercial producers, or they do corporate videos, or they do wedding videos, and then they do passion projects on the side, or they're in the administrative side or the business side of the industry as assistants and executives and things like that. And yes, it's a wonderful goal to be able to make your annual salary, your budget demands just on your filmmaking alone. But that is, I feel like that's the exception and not the rule. And especially lately with the downturn in the industry, so many people are out of work. There isn't much coming down the pipeline. So you might be getting jobs, but they're few and far between. And so a lot of people are thinking about, like, well, how do I pay the bills? And you might also be at a different place in life. Like when my kids were little, I thought about, well, maybe should I get a real estate license or something? And and that's why I worked in this corporate data analysis job because it was remote. I could work from home. I had the flexibility to continue to pursue my film projects. I could be around for my kids and I could pay the bills. And so I know these are discouraging times for a variety of reasons. But this idea that film is a business and people have always talked about it being show business and that it's a business and an art. But when you look at the history of things in the film industry, the business side of it is not a sure thing. And every film is its own startup. And it just, I think it's a mistake personally, currently. I think it's a mistake to look at this as something to make money from. I know that people have made money, but I also know people who haven't made money. I know people who have gone into debt or taken bad deals or not been able to make their film because of money. And obviously, filmmaking is expensive and requires people and resources and time and money. But if we somehow go back to looking at it as an art form, and that the fact that in the history of the arts, we have always needed patrons for the art, at least right now, I think that's the way to create something sustainable, and not just sustainable, but fulfilling. Because if you're just doing it for the money, this is the hardest, most depressing way, uh, because most of the time you're losing money. And there's so much rejection. It's and again, I say that as somebody who's in it, who's still doing it, who still has hope and faith and wanting to make my next movie and another one after that and another one after that. And I have not gotten to the point of saying, I quit and I want to go be a mortgage banker. But that's also because I get my bills paid teaching film. So I think this idea of having patronage or having a job that pays your bills that allows you to pursue film as a fulfilling soul oriented art form and not as a business or for profit. I think that's the way that you can hang in there, especially while things are kind of churning right now and trying to recover. And it's just interesting. I ran into somebody who had been in the industry many years ago, and they said that, or they made the observation that in all this time I hadn't lost my hope or joy or excitement, inspiration about making films. And that being in the industry and seeing how the sausage was made and just the depressing side of the industry really drove them to the point where they just quit it entirely and stopped making films. And to me, I feel like that is the worst of all options, to stop making art. I understand, again, from a job perspective, it might not be the best job to have, but if you're an artist and you want to tell stories, I don't see how there's a way to quit that. That's where I've been pursuing the fiscal sponsorship route, where again, I'm looking for patrons, I'm looking for charitable donations, I'm looking for community building and philanthropic filmmaking, because the goal isn't to make money, the goal is to make a movie.